Happy New Year. We don't usually get to preview regular season games in January, but here we are, our final starter sit episode of the year. Of course, we will do this for the playoff games, give you some DFS advice, playoff challenge advice, that kind of stuff. But we welcome you to the Friday show. Hope you all had a great New Year's Eve. Adam Azer, Dave Richard, Jamie Eisenberg. Happy New Year, guys.
Happy New Year.
Hey. Dave, what's going on?
So, hi, first of all. We're recording this at 8:15 a.m. Eastern on New Year's Day. I must really love fantasy football. I like doing my job.
Do you have plans last night? I mean, who was doing anything?
Yeah, well, so we did have plans, actually. My wife and I planned on cruising the beach and finding like a high-rise parking lot and checking out all the fireworks from all over Dade and Broward County. And we ended up having some champagne, crashing on the couch, watching Rogue One and Black Panther. Did I mention the champagne?
I think we can hear the champagne talking, Dave.
And then on top of that, I've got a teenage son who was out celebrating New Year's, and he came home well past midnight and was loud.
Okay.
And so, yeah, I mean, Jamie knows that like I'm like a weirdo about my sleep, and I didn't get a whole lot of that last night.
All right. Well, no, it's okay. You know what? We'll.
You don't have to be so loud, Adam. You don't have to be so loud. I can hear you. We're good.
All right. Well, listen. I had a very boring New Year's myself. We tried to watch Schitt's Creek. We were like, hey, we're gonna have a little marathon tonight. We watched one episode and fell asleep. But we did wake up before the ball dropped. Does anybody know the words to the song that they play at midnight?
Yes.
You do?
Yes.
What do they say?
No, I don't know the words. I didn't even know there were words.
All right. Well, yesterday on Fantasy Football Today in 5, or actually aired this morning at 3 a.m., Chris Towers and I gave our
5 hours ago.
Yeah, our New Year's resolution for fantasy football. So I'll give you guys a little bit to think about if you have any fantasy football New Year's resolutions.
Oh, I got one.
Okay. Chris said that don't try to make tight end a thing. It's never going to be the year of the tight end. Tight end always stinks. And with that said, prioritize the good tight ends. I said add a flex in my leagues that I commission more. And I encourage everyone to consider that. Get out of the old habits of your starting lineups and think about either a super flex or just adding an extra flex or something like that. You've got good players on your bench. Why not put them in your starting lineup? Dave, what do you got? What's a fantasy New Year's resolution?
Well, the first one is going to be no podcast at 8 a.m. on New Year's Day. The second one is going to be decimal scoring. Yeah. The third one is going to be get used to IR spots. They're going to be a thing in the NFL. They're going to be a thing in fantasy football for the foreseeable future. So we can start with those as New Year's resolutions.
Jamie, did we take all the good ones?
No. Wednesday waivers, every league.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I like that one.
I do too, but it takes a little bit of steam out of the Tuesday show, I feel.
No, you still do the waiver show on Tuesday. We're still.
Here's what you do. Tuesday becomes trade day. Wednesday becomes waiver day.
No, I don't like that.
Tuesday trades, Wednesday waivers. I think that's the way to do it.
I need a little time to think about my. Well, that's the other thing. The one thing I don't like about waivers on Wednesday, Wednesday night, Thursday morning. You kind of, if you need to make a trade, you need to know who's on your roster. You have to wait an extra day for that, right? Sometimes if I don't get this guy,
you can plan the trade on Tuesday, and then waivers can run on Wednesday, and then you can make the trade after that. But I think maybe one of the reasons why there aren't a lot of trades in fantasy is because there's not a lot of time to lay the groundwork for it.
Okay. All right. Well, those are good New Year's resolutions.
Yeah, it's not the reason. It's not the reason. It's a reason.
Our show, what, Jamie?
Our shows will still be the same.
The schedule will be the same, but it just won't have the same excitement. Tuesday waivers when
Well, I don't know if that's going to be an industry thing that people are going to change their waivers to Tuesday.
You're not going to change your waivers to Wednesday.
Oh, I am.
You're bluffing.
No, I'm not.
I think Jamie's found his campaign for the off season.
We've got the Early Edge podcast. If you're looking for a leg up on your bookmaker, we've got you covered on the Early Edge podcast powered by Sportsline. Every day you can join Jonathan Coachman and an expert crew of Sportsline handicappers to break down the biggest games of the day. Every episode is 10 minutes or shorter, and it's in your feed by 11 a.m. If there's a sharp side of the action, you'll be armed with it, and go check out the Early Edge podcast wherever you listen to fantasy football today. On Sunday, we do have FFT in 5 at 8:30 a.m., HQ at 10 a.m. till 1 p.m. There is no Twitch on Sunday. There was no Twitch last night. If you were sitting there for an hour waiting for us, I'm sorry we didn't show up. But no Twitch this week, basically. So that's done for a little while. We'll keep you posted on that. But thanks for being part of that awesome audience, awesome experience throughout the year. All right, news and notes. Ryan Fitzpatrick is on the reserve COVID list, so Tua Tagovailoa is not going to get benched. My news and notes are kind of bouncing all over the place between things that are very important and are not. So this is pretty important, though. David Bakhtiari may have he did tear his ACL.
Yep, that sucks.
Yeah, that's left tackle for the Packers. He's an elite player. And another one of their guards.
What's worse, to tear your ACL at the beginning of the season or right before you're about to be the 1 seed going into the playoffs?
Right before you're about to be the 1 seed.
Or, yeah. Yeah.
Because you played
The problem with that, though, is...
No,
I'm sorry. Yeah, you're saying that's worse. Yes, I agree.
Yeah, but at least he helped him get there. But it does stink.
Yeah, but now you don't get to play in the most important games of the year.
Well, it's not. I was thinking the other side of that as well is now you may miss the start of the next season.
Yeah, right. Sure, that's another part of it.
Well, you don't get if you tore your ACL in week 1, you'd miss the playoffs anyway. So you might as well get some games in there, right? Rick Wagner may miss this week too. It's another offensive lineman for the Packers. So they're going to be down potentially two offensive linemen. Does that change anything for the 3 must-start guys?
They got Valdir, right? Am I crazy? Or did they sign Jared Valdir? Or am I just still in my hangover here?
Yeah, it might be the champagne talking.
Colts got Valdir, not the Packers.
No, it does not. It does not change anything.
My bad. No, it doesn't. Well, not anytime soon. It doesn't change anything. We got to see how they operate, but they'll mix and match and come out okay. And Rodgers has dealt with inferior offensive lines before. I'm not even sure it's that inferior without Bakhtiari. It's not as good, of course, but it's not the end of the line for Green Bay.
The only thing that may change for Aaron Jones is the fact that Jamal Williams is practiced in full. And so are they going to use now 3 running backs?
Oh, yeah.
I'd be surprised.
You can't really start A.J. Dillon anymore, right? I mean,
No. I'm not talking about starting one of those guys, but, I mean, this is a big game for them to get the 1 seed. But, again, they want to make sure that guy's 100% healthy. So do they use 3 guys this week? Like, significantly use 3 guys this week.
Right. Okay. Ronald Jones practiced in full. He's going to play. Alex Smith practiced. He's looking good, not certain, but looking good for Sunday night. Terry McLaurin has not been practicing with the team, but Ron Rivera said that off to the side he has been looking better. So that's good to know. Miami is without linebacker Landon Roberts. He's on IR. Cam Akers has not been ruled out yet. We're going to preview that game. The NFC home games this week are much tougher to preview than the AFC home games. You don't have any situations where we know a bunch of the teams are sitting their guys or anything. It's just the matchups are tougher. So Rams, are there any Rams we're going to start? That's one team that maybe you want to avoid right now. But if Cam Akers plays, maybe we'll throw him in our lineup. Denzel Ward is on the reserve COVID list. He's out this week. And BJ Goodson, starting linebacker, he's probably out. Same with Andrew Sendejo. So Pittsburgh, you wish, if Roethlisberger were playing, you might be kind of excited about him because the Cleveland's defense is going to be very shorthanded. Keenan Allen is out. We talked about this yesterday, Jamie, but your thoughts on Mike Davis? Good FanDuel value, by the way. But your thoughts on Mike Davis, who got 10 targets last week?
Mike Williams.
Sorry.
Yeah, he's in that number 3 conversation. Depending on how he connects on those 10 targets, it's pretty clear that he's the number 1 guy there. I know we had some questions about it last week of Tyron Johnson and Jalen Guyton. Could those guys step up? I think right now, if you're looking at it, they're all in play to various degrees. Better DFS than starting options, but for me, and I think the Chargers, it's Williams, Guyton, Johnson.
Cool. Let's see what else we got. Keenan Allen out. So DJ Chark, that's where we're at next. DJ Chark is questionable. Devontae Parker could be a game time decision.
Don't play. Don't ruin the amazing season next year. Don't play.
Who? Chark?
Chark.
Yeah.
You're so excited for him for next year.
Oh my gosh.
Devontae Parker could be a game time decision. Damian Harris not expected to play. Where's Sony Michel going to end up in your rankings? Going to be a top 24 guy by any chance?
No, he'll be outside of there. Kind of a 6 or 7 fantasy point running back max.
Play JJ Taylor.
Yeah, see what you got.
Okay. The Jets' offensive line could be fully healthy this week. That's good.
They've been playing better last 3 weeks.
Tyler
Ty Johnson.
Let's go.
He's got a better chance of being a top 24 running back than Sony, especially in PPR. That's a no-brainer.
Okay. Tyler Boyd was limited in practice. Do you guys think Tyler Boyd is going to play?
Seems that way.
So starter sit Boyd and or Higgins now.
Higgins is still a borderline starter. Boyd is not far behind him, but nothing great with those guys.
I'm not ready to start Boyd in non or half PPR. Higgins is a start in all formats.
Houston left tackle Laramie. I don't. By the way, I don't get that at all. This T. Higgins love. Like,
what's not to get?
He had been terrible basically before last week.
Right. Well, he was playing with a terrible quarterback. 4 games with Brandon Allen. At least he's giving you 10 PPR points. That's the floor. 2 of those games he's had 15 plus PPR points, and he's got some big play potential. And the secondary for Baltimore is beat up right now.
Well, Jimmy Smith practiced. So
if he didn't he practice last week a little bit?
I'm not sure what his practice status was, but
yeah, I know he didn't play.
Yes, he's gonna play.
Yeah, that's okay. I think T. Higgins can beat Jimmy Smith. It's Marcus Peters.
Yeah, Higgins is not a slam dunk. He's not as much of a slam dunk as he was with Tyler Boyd out. I liked him a lot last week with Boyd not playing. I don't love him as much this week with Boyd.
The 2 things we've seen from Brandon Allen are he leans on his tight end a little bit more than your typical quarterback does, and he leans on his number 1 receiver a little bit more. Higgins has averaged 7.5 targets per game with Allen.
Okay, but if you remove last week when Tyler Boyd didn't play, like his production just wasn't really that good. He was
bad.
Flex kind of player,
Mm-hmm.
Give you some catches, but I mean, I'm not crazy.
10 points PPR floor.
Around 50 yards, 3 straight weeks.
Right.
Yeah.
He's not as good this week as he was last week.
Right. Okay.
Going in. Forget about what the result was going in.
Yeah, I gotcha. It's hinging on Tyler Boyd, right?
Right.
Let's see. Dallas Goedert missed practice. We're not projecting him right now, and Zach Ertz obviously gets a boost against Washington. And the Eagles are so beat up. Now their left tackle's probably not going to play. Jalen Mills is out. Their safety. They already have a beat up secondary. And Alshon Jeffrey's dinged up. Who else? Goddard, obviously. It's just Fletcher Cox and Derek Barnett at the line. So it's things are, in terms of the injuries, things are trending up for Washington and down for Philadelphia, and that is our first game. Let's get to it right now. Remember, every game that we preview today, we're going to talk about the starts and the sits, and then we're going to do a 2021 question. Washington at Philadelphia, stat of the game. Miles Sanders had an 82-yard touchdown run against the Saints. That is his only carry that went for more than 11 yards in his last 6 games. Washington's run defense has been pretty good this year. They've been pretty dominant in 4 of their last 6 games. Not great against San Francisco or Seattle, but I mean, you can't say it's a good matchup for Miles Sanders. So, Dave, start or sit, Miles Sanders?
I'm starting him because he's got the potential for those types of big runs, and I think he's got the potential for 15-plus touches. And Philadelphia's run game, I feel like it's a little bit more secure now than it was in the waning days of Carson Wentz as a starter.
But that's what I don't agree with. I feel like we've ended up being a little bit too high on Miles Sanders the last couple of weeks. Or when did he have the long run? Was that 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago?
It was against New Orleans.
So that was right. That was 2 weeks ago. And what's he done since?
He's had 90 total yards or a touchdown each of the 3 games that Jalen Hurts has played. So, I think that the thing that he's not necessarily playing better per se. They're not necessarily playing better per se as an offensive line. The workload is back for him. That's the big thing, is that they're feeding him once again. My concern with him this week is not just the fact that his offensive line is banged up again and that Washington's run defense is great. Or very good. He just showed up on the injury report on Thursday, and this is a meaningless game for them. How much is he going to play? And so when I started the week, I thought that there was an opportunity for him to finish season strong. I'm sure he's going to want to finish season strong. But I have him ranked 13th right now. I'm going to drop him probably 4 or 5 spots. So he's still a starter. But it's not as much of a slam dunk because of the scenario that's now unfolding. Why risk getting him hurt?
Yeah.
And as for the matchup, Washington's allowed a touchdown to a running back 3 straight games, 4.1 yards per carry to running backs in those 3 games. They're okay against the run, but they've given up some numbers.
They don't give up.
Sanders could
They don't
score
give
a
up
few
receptions
plays.
to running backs. I just remember this with Mike Davis last week. They don't give up a lot of receptions to running backs. They're among the leader in the NFL in terms of fewest catches, and Mike Davis had none. Then you go to their
many targets
touchdowns.
did he
Yes,
have?
they gave up a touchdown to Mike Davis last week. He had 14 carries for 28 yards. I mean, this is a very good run defense.
Yeah, if you want to, you want to look at the last 3 games, sure. But if you want to look at the last 6 games, what they did before that, they were, like I said, they were dominant.
And this game means the world to them.
Davis didn't have any targets. How can you have any catches if you don't have any targets?
Well, yeah,
maybe he was covered. I mean,
they didn't call any screens or anything like that for him.
Either way, it wasn't just him. They've been good in that.
Sure. Look, I'm not saying that you should start Miles Sanders with visions of 6 catches and 50 yards receiving, but he'll get a few numbers in the passing game. He won't get 0 targets unless he doesn't play.
Yeah. Okay. Sticking with the Eagles, what do we think about Jalen Hurts this week, who had a great half and then a bunch of turnovers in the second half and ended up scoring 19 points against the Cowboys? Jamie, we do have Hurts in our top 10, not me, but you, Dave, and Heath. So how confident are you in him?
I think you kind of saw what the floor is. You saw the mistakes. You saw the, inexperience show up a little bit when, teams are now seeing what he does, and whenever there's a game of film, 2 games of film, you see what a guy does and his tendencies, and you start to figure him out a little bit. It's a limited offensive line. It's a limited receiving core. And so, if you start to take away some things and hide your coverages, disguise your coverages, you're going to see some mistakes. But the flip side is he threw for a career high 342 yards. He now has 3 straight games of 63 yards rushing. And so if that's what he's going to continue to deliver, then the upside is still top 5, like we said last week. So had you eliminated the turnovers, he's in the conversation for a top 5 quarterback. So I think the potential still there for him to be a very good starting fantasy option. This is a tough defense. We've seen it time and time again, but I'm still going to stick with Jalen Hurts if he's the guy that got me to this point.
Okay. Jalen Hurts or Kirk Cousins?
Cousins has a much higher ceiling this week.
Yes.
Jalen Hurts or Kyler Murray?
I've got Hurts a notch ahead of Murray.
Okay. And no, I'm assuming no Eagles wide receivers. So let's talk about Zach Ertz. If Dallas Goedert is in fact out, how excited would you be about Zach Ertz? Dave, start or sit?
I'd be okay with him. I've got him as a low end start. I think that the targets would be there in decent fashion for him, and we've seen him make some downfield plays with Jalen Hurts this season. So I would imagine that he would be in line for like a 10-point PPR floor. Same thing that we were talking about T. Higgins a little bit ago, 5 for 50, something like that. And he's got upside to score against Washington.
Okay. So we go over to Washington here. Is anybody going to take a shot on Alex Smith against this pass defense? In the last 2 games, they've allowed 377 or more yards and 3 touchdowns to Kyler Murray and Andy Dalton. And those guys had 30 and 36 pass attempts. It's not like they were throwing 50 times. So right now, the way the Eagles have played defense the last couple of weeks, they might have the worst pass defense in football based on the last 2 weeks. And we know how injured they are. So Alex Smith, Jamie, what's the appeal, if any?
Well, the appeal is that they want to make sure he's healthy and right going into the playoffs, but they clearly need to get to the playoffs first. So I think this is a ground and pound game for Washington. If Antonio Gibson is as healthy as they say, we're recording this Friday morning, as Dave pointed out, with his hangover. But there's a chance he misses practice on Friday. And, I'm saying that very, very optimistically that he plays because he's the start of the week, because I think it's going to be a great opportunity for him. Now, Ron Rivera said he's fine. So hopefully that's the case. And Scott Turner, the offense coordinator, said on Wednesday that they wanted to give him more work in the game against Carolina. So I'm kind of tying those 2 things together and hoping that he's going to play in this game. But if he's out and they don't have Gibson, then it falls a little bit more on Alex Smith's shoulders. And if the Eagles offense does show up while the defense is terrible, they can still put up points against Washington, as Carolina did. And so if that happens and they're chasing points, then Alex Smith's going to be a decent fantasy quarterback this week, because like you said, this secondary is terrible. Their pass rush is probably not going to be there. And so this could be a get right game for Alex Smith if he's in that 35 plus pass attempt range, which we've seen several times from him this year. then he could fall into a low end starting option at quarterback. So he's better in super flex and 2 quarterback leagues.
Okay. Nobody's got him in the top 20. So Antonio Gibson's a must start if he plays. If he does play, we talked about this on Wednesday. Are you guys starting JD McKissic? And obviously it would only be in PPR, but I'm concerned because his role last week, he still had his role, but they were trailing the entire game. But we did see that when Gibson was healthy before the injury, McKissic's role was starting to diminish a little bit. So
I would be a little nervous to start McKissic. I've got him 24th in PPR.
Okay.
Among running backs.
I'm still perfectly fine with him in PPR as a must-start guy if McLaurin is out. If McLaurin is in, then I will downgrade J.D. McKissic. But they don't have a lot in the passing game right now. So Scott Turner is certainly creative enough, and I think that's the one area where Antonio Gibson still loses a little bit, because if you're going to rest him in any part of the game, you rest him in obvious passing downs because McKissic is so good in that range.
Okay, right. Okay, so McKissic or Miles Sanders, PPR?
Sanders.
Sanders was close.
How about, would you start McKissic over Kenyon Drake? I know you guys don't love Kenyon Drake.
In PPR, absolutely.
If Chase Edmonds is out, I'm fine starting Drake over McKissic.
Okay, so Jamie, you said you would start McKissic over Drake, but what if McLaurin is out? What would you do there?
If McLaurin is out, then I would go back to Drake.
If he's in.
I'm sorry, if McLaurin is in, I would go back to Drake.
Okay. Logan Thomas, top 6 in both formats. Start him. Washington DST is a start this week. And, what happened to my 2021 question? There it is. 2021, Terry McLaurin or Antonio Gibson?
Gibson. That's close.
Okay. Yes, no hesitation there.
None. Well, because Gibson might be a rock star running back with, amazing workload. Washington's offensive line is going to get better this offseason. Their quarterback situation will get fleshed out a little bit more. They're not going to change a thing at running back, I don't believe.
Both going to be probably 3rd round picks, somewhere around there.
He might not be a 3rd round pick. He might be a 2nd round pick.
Oh, Gibson's a 2nd round pick. McLaurin will be a 3rd round pick.
I don't know. You guys did your top.
I don't know. McLaurin might be one of those guys that slides out a little bit. I don't know if he'll be a 3rd round pick.
Wait a second. You guys did your top 24. I did mine. Gibson was not in there, not because I don't like him, but it's hard to get 24 guys in there. Was it Gibson in your top 24? I doubt.
I haven't done mine yet, so I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Look at mine right now.
I don't think he was.
He was not.
Yeah. No, he's a 3rd round pick right now. Arizona at the Rams.
We'll see.
I'm just telling you, there's just a ton of good players. You got to put him in over.
Right. That's what I was thinking of with
Jefferson.
McLaurin.
And McLaurin didn't make my top.
I think you're going to see so many running backs in the first 2 rounds based on what this group looks like and how the position unfolds, that you're going to see a lot of receivers in round 3. I mean, McLaurin probably going to be around 4 pick. I should clarify that. But Gibson's going to be late round 2, early round 3.
It's my kind of year.
I guarantee he's not going to be in your top 24.
Who, Gibson?
Yeah.
Oh, he absolutely has a chance to be in the top 24.
You're just going to see, there's just too many. You're going to
I think my top 24 is going to have 2 wide receivers, 3 tight ends, and
3 tight ends.
You know how bad of a year this was for running backs? I mean, this year sucked for running backs.
It did, but I think it also – I also think this year made it clear that when you've got that stud running back –
every year's like that.
I know. So it was reinforced.
It sucked for running back because we lost McCaffrey, Barkley, and had a crappy Zeke for half the season.
No kidding. So that's what I'm saying is, why do you think people are going to go so running back heavy when we're coming off a bad year?
Because I think the people that went 0 running back may have struggled if they didn't get James Robinson. A lot of it's the same as every
I don't
year,
think so. I think the people that went 0 running back are really happy, but I think you found
I don't think so. I've got a lot of people telling me that, and I have my leagues.
I have a lot of people telling me that they loved going 0 running back this year.
Okay, so the people, here's how it's going to go down: is that the people who went 0 RB and loved it, they're going to do it again. The people who went 0 RB and hated it, they're never going to do it again. And the people who've always drafted at least 1 stud running back, they're going to continue to do that, if not draft 2.
I just think
receivers so deep the same thing it's been every year.
You're gonna find such a run on running backs the first 2 rounds is going to be ridiculous.
I think you're going to get in the 3rd round. You're going to get many of the rookies. I think Cam Akers, DeAndre Swift, Antonio Gibson, Clyde Edwards-Helaire are going to fall late round 2 or into round 3, and then for Edwards-Helaire, who knows where he's going to be drafted. So you're going to get good running backs in round 3 as well, except they're going to be part of the running back dead zone. But they're going to be young.
The dead zone can change from year to year. I bet this year the dead zone starts round 4.
Because I don't know. I just know how fantasy managers react to what happened last year. And I'm getting the feeling that it's going to be 3 tight ends in the top 24.
Yep.
And, a lot of running backs. So that leaves us 21. I bet you there's going to be 12 running backs. No. 12 running backs, 9 receivers, something like that. And that means Antonio Gibson's probably going to have to make your top 12. And he's just not. All right,
He doesn't make our top 12, my top 12 right now. So by that logic, I would agree. But I agree with Jamie. I think there's going to be a lot of running backs in round 1.
Oh,
maybe as many as 9.
All right, Arizona's at the Rams. Stat of the game. Let's talk about
no first-round running backs in this game.
DeAndre Hopkins. Only one wide receiver since week 3 has had more than 70 yards against the Rams. It was Deebo Samuel. Who did not in that stretch? Terry McLaurin, Brandon Ayuk, Allen Robinson, Devontae Parker, the Seattle wide receivers, the Tampa Bay wide receivers, DeAndre Hopkins himself. He had 8 catches, 52 yards, and a touchdown, and the Seattle wide receivers again. I mentioned some absolute studs there, and none of them got to 70 yards. So, yes, you're starting Hopkins, but you guys have him pretty high. Is it just because he's gotten so many targets recently?
I've gone back and forth with him. He's going to settle somewhere around 13, like where I had Metcalf last week. I just think he scored against them the last time. He's got that potential. They're going to get fed targets because they need to win this game. So, they'll throw at Ramsey. Kyler will throw at Ramsey. They'll scheme him up to avoid Ramsey. So I don't think he's going to have a monster game, but I think somewhere in the neighborhood of 60 to 75 yards is certainly on the table for him. And I think he does have a chance to find the end zone. He should have scored last week too.
Okay. He's going to have a ton of catches. So to me, he's still a top 5 receiver in full PPR.
Kyler Murray, starter sit.
I would try to sit him if you can.
Yeah, let's not forget, Rams have arguably the best defense in football. Really thought Kyler was back last week. I don't know what the heck happened last week, but he is throwing the ball downfield, so that's good. Kenyon Drake in his last 4 games, he's averaging 3.28 yards per carry. He's just scoring. If he doesn't score, you're in a lot of trouble here. And he has faced tough matchups in his last 4 games: the Rams, the Giants, the Eagles, and the Niners. But the Rams are one of them it's a really tough matchup. So, you'd start Alexander Madison over Kenyon Drake, I assume?
As if he plays, yeah.
Yeah.
If I give you some wide receivers here, would you start Michael Gallup over Kenyon Drake?
In PPR, yes.
For sure.
How about Emmanuel Sanders?
Yep.
Full PPR, yes.
How about a Steelers wide receiver or Drake?
No.
I've got a couple of Steelers receivers ahead of Drake right now in full PPR.
Do you have any interest in Christian Kirk this week?
No.
Okay.
What he said.
Do you have any interest in any Rams this week? Malcolm Brown or Kenyon Drake? Let's start with that.
I like Brown better.
Ooh.
I think, well, listen, if there's no Cam Akers there, Brown should see the majority, if not every single touch. Arizona's run defense hasn't been great. I believe last 6 games, 5 yards per carry and 9 total touchdowns to running backs. So there's an opportunity, and the coaches like Malcolm Brown. They were giving him some pretty big roles earlier this year. And the only reason why they weren't giving him a big role lately is because of how the other running backs were doing. But they're not playing. So I think that he's got a chance to get you some good numbers.
Yeah, this run defense kind of stinks, as Dave was saying. And the Rams have the 7th most carries in the NFL. They run, and that's without their quarterback being a big part of that. So they are a very heavy run team. And Jamie, you said no on Malcolm Brown. You're not really interested in Malcolm Brown.
No, I said I would start him over Drake.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you said you would not. Okay. So, all right, great. So Malcolm Brown is a top 24 guy?
Yep.
I am 21st, and I'm thinking about putting him over Gio to get him in the top 20.
Oh, he's much better than Gio.
I don't know if he's much better than Gio. I don't know what to think of Gio's catch potential after last week. He had that huge breakout with all those catches. I don't know if that's
that was against Houston. This is Baltimore.
Yeah. Okay. It's not a bad idea to change that.
Yeah. So I think I and most people would be more optimistic about Malcolm Brown if Jared Goff were playing. I just have this concern that they're going to have like 200 total yards and just a horrible offensive game.
I don't know. I think Wolford is okay. And I think he's a good fit for that system. First of all, it wasn't like Jared Goff was lighting the world on fire when he was playing football.
Wolfer's going to run, and that's going to be a fun thing to watch. He's going to be mobile. I don't know how good he's going to throw the ball. I don't know how much he's going to connect with Robert Woods, because that's the big part of what you're looking at from a passing game perspective. But he's going to move, and that's going to be fun. It could be good for Malcolm Brown. This is going to be a very conservative game plan for the Rams, because they know their defense could win this game. So I don't think you're going to see, hey, let's open up the offense with John Walford and no Cooper Kupp. But I do think you're going to see a lot of RPOs, a lot of moving around, some different things from the quarterback play. They like to get their quarterback out in space. The difference is that Goff doesn't want to move. This guy's going to want to run.
No, Goff moves. He just doesn't want to run for yardage. He doesn't want to get hit.
He moves behind the line of scrimmage.
Right. So like bootlegs and stuff like that. Right.
Walford's going to pull the ball down and run. So, and that'll create some interesting running lanes for Malcolm Brown. Now, Malcolm Brown stinks. So that's the thing you're banking on. Is he actually a good football player? He's good enough. He's not a great fantasy option, but the opportunity is great. So,
right.
Yeah. Okay. So is there anyone in the passing game you're interested in? Robert Woods obviously being the headliner there, but maybe you think about a tight end as well with Kupp being out.
I'm not starting Higbee with any confidence. Woods is the only guy.
Yeah, I try to avoid Woods if you can, but he's a low end starter. Targets will be there for him, but so will coverage. And so I don't think they're going to be scared of Josh Reynolds or Van Jefferson beating them. They're going to try and take Robert Woods out of the game. And so, Vance Joseph is certainly good enough to scheme, with probably Patrick Peterson and some help to negate what Robert Woods is going to do. He'll also get some work behind the line of scrimmage, which will be nice, but I don't see a huge game coming for Robert Woods.
Okay. Two final questions here. Robert Woods or Malcolm Brown?
I would go Brown in non-PPR.
And Woods in full?
Yep.
Dave?
Yeah.
Okay.
Woods in full PPR, Brown in non-PPR.
And second question, if Cam Akers plays, he's a must start?
I think that makes things a little bit messy, because how healthy is he? Coming off a high ankle sprain, I'm sure he's a tough kid, wants to get out, help his team get in the playoffs, but is he more of the emergency guy as opposed to the starter?
I would not want to trust either Rams running back if Akers is playing.
Makes sense. All right, then. And the DSTs are in play. Dave's not very high on the Arizona DST, but Jamie and Heath are, and everybody's starting the Rams DST. 2021 question for this game: Robert Woods or Cam Akers?
Well, that's a good one. I think I'm going to say Akers.
Yeah, Akers.
Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't come up with a good one for this game.
Is Akers or Drake?
Oh, I'm so out on Drake.
Yeah, I think the Cardinals might be out on Drake.
That's true. Yeah, he may not come back.
Yeah. No, I was going to bring up something about Goff, but it doesn't pertain to Week 17, so never mind.
All right, let's go to Atlanta at Tampa Bay. The one team, by the way, when I sit down, I do these game previews. Everybody's got their own system, their own style. The team I hate is Tampa Bay.
That's mean.
So many relevant players. They have a lockdown cornerback most weeks. They have a great run defense, so at least you can, that's kind of easy. But their pass defense hasn't been very good. I don't know. They're tough for me. So Matt Ryan, start with him. First meeting here was a great one. It was just a few weeks ago. Every fantasy relevant player did well in this game, except for the Atlanta running backs who aren't really that fantasy relevant, and Rob Gronkowski wasn't good. But this was a great game for fantasy last time around. You guys have Matt Ryan in your top 12, barely. Heath has him 15th. So are we in on Matt Ryan after two straight good games without Julio Jones, when before that was just like a death sentence? He was so bad without Julio Jones. Jamie, are we back on Matt Ryan?
Yes, I like quarterbacks that throw the ball 60 times, and he's going to throw the ball 60 times in this game. They have nothing to lose, so it's going to, go, and they have no run game. So, this feels like a 402-4 game for him. He's going to turn the ball over, but he's going to throw himself into enough production that you're going to be okay with Matt Ryan. And if he doesn't turn the ball over, especially if Carlton Davis doesn't play, then I think it's going to be a huge game for Matt Ryan, because Tampa Bay, once they build their lead, they'll start to pull some guys because they know they're going to be playing next week. And so I think Matt Ryan's going to have garbage time. I think he's going to, what we've seen from him is his first halves have been great. The last 2 weeks, the first halves have been fantastic.
That's what happened against Tampa Bay the first time.
Can the same thing happen this week, but then you get the garbage time on top of it because of the Bucs pulling some guys. So I'm perfectly fine with Matt Ryan.
Why garbage time, though? I mean, they just took the Chiefs down to the wire, and they lost by 4 to Tampa Bay. in their last 2 games. They lost by 5 to New Orleans. You know, they haven't been blown out in 6 games, and that was against the Saints. So they've lost.
This is not their typical good spot. They're on the road, outdoors, and I know they held the Chiefs in check in Kansas City, but Tampa Bay is playing great right now. Their offense looks like it's humming,
and their defense doesn't. So that it could go down the same way as it did 2 weeks ago, and there could also be garbage time on top of that. Or did the Bucs learn in the second half of their game against Atlanta last time to just blitz the snot out of Matt Ryan and challenge him that way, because he doesn't always beat the blitz.
And I don't love that
the first half will be bad. What's that?
I don't love that Alex Mack is out.
Yeah, that hurts, and we'll see what that means. It could mean a lot of up the gut blitzes, and Matt Ryan will just collapse as soon as he sees that. But the second half could be good. It could be a flip of what we saw 2 weeks ago, but I'm still pretty confident he'll get you over 20 fantasy points. Something like 7 of the last 9 quarterbacks to take on Tampa Bay have done that.
Oh, that's the other thing. I mean, the 3 of the last 5 have scored 29 or more fantasy points against Tampa Bay, and yeah, they're giving up a ton of fantasy points for sure. Right. And obviously last week faced Detroit. And
Carlton Davis, I don't think is practicing.
Okay, so we're gonna sit the running backs, obviously. By the way, Matt Ryan or Jalen Hurts?
I've got Hurts ahead of Ryan. The one I'm debating is Matt Ryan versus Kyler Murray.
I'm starting Ryan.
I get it. I get that. I think I want to see if Kyler isn't on the injury report. I think I'll have enough confidence.
Kyler hasn't been on the injury report all week.
Then there we go. Let's see if that happens on Friday. I'm sure it'll be that way, and he'll be good to go.
All right, Atlanta wide receivers start Calvin Ridley, 4 straight games with 100 yards. Russell Gage, Dave, starter sit Russell Gage.
He's a flex in PPR. That's it. And that's pretty much what he's been all along. I think we had a little more confidence in him last week just because of the streak that he was on, and he didn't quite deliver in that game. But I think against Tampa Bay, he's got a chance to.
He's had 1 bad game in his last 4. He's a
That was last week, right?
Very, very close to a borderline starter in PPR.
Gage or Gallup?
Gallup.
I'll take Gage in PPR for sure.
Gage or Lamb?
I think I have Lamb ranked high.
Lamb. Okay. Okay. Gage or Malcolm Brown? Half
Gage.
PPR. Half PPR.
Gage.
I'll take Brown.
Okay. For what it's worth, Gage had 5 catches, 68 yards, and a touchdown a few weeks ago against Tampa Bay. Okay. And Hayden Hurst. Dave, you're the high guy on Hayden Hurst.
He scored in 2 straight games. Ryan's going to throw the ball a lot. Certainly could be a red zone option. I don't love him. I don't think he's going to be amazing, but it'll be okay.
Hurts or Hurts? Hurst. Hurts or Hurst?
I have Hurst over Ertz.
Okay. How about Evan Ingram or Hayden Hurst?
I don't want to start Evan Ingram.
Okay. Jamie, Ingram or Hurst?
Hurst.
Okay. Tom Brady's top 5. He is crushing it. 27 or more fantasy points in 3 of his last 4 games. And, Atlanta's certainly getting better, but still, he was great against them last time around, at least from fantasy standpoint. Tampa Bay running backs. All right. So Ronald Jones is the guy this week. We've talked about Kenyon Drake. We don't seem to like him very much. Is Ronald Jones ahead of Kenyon Drake against a team that's giving up second fewest fantasy points to running backs?
Yep.
Okay.
Miles Sanders or Ronald Jones?
Sanders for me.
I will take Ronald Jones in non-PPR, Sanders in PPR.
Okay. Ronald Jones or Robert Woods? Half PPR.
I'll take Ronald Jones.
I think I will too.
Alrighty.
Fresh legs, man. This point in the season is huge.
And then break down the Tampa Bay wide receivers, Jamie.
Mike Evans is a must start. Chris Godwin's not far behind. Antonio Brown's the number 3 receiver.
Brown or Gage?
Gage.
Okay. And Dave, Rob Gronkowski or Hayden Hurst is the best tight end in this game?
Gronk in non-PPR. Who do I have ranked higher in full PPR? I have Gronk a spot ahead of Hurst in PPR.
Okay. Jamie's got Gronk ahead of Hurst too. He's a low-end starter. You know the deal. He catches a lot of touchdowns, but he could also get you two targets. So in his last 7 games, he has 2 to 3 targets in 3 of them. And Atlanta's actually been a lot better against tight ends lately. Fant, Waller, Henry, Gronk, they were good against all of them. They were pretty good against Jared Cook, but he scored. Travis Kelce, whatever. They were bad against him, but who isn't? And then the Bucs DST, 13th for Jamie, 8th for Dave, 7th for Heath. 2021 question, Chris Godwin or Mike Evans?
I think it's got to be Evans.
Oh, how the tables have turned. Or as Michael Scott would say, how the turntables have turned. Chris Godwin or Mike Evans over Chris Godwin. Okay. New Orleans and Carolina. Stat of the game. Carolina has allowed 51 or more yards or a touchdown to a tight end in 9 straight games. Included in that stretch was Jared Cook. He kicked off this stretch of 9 games of good tight end production against Carolina. Also, guys like Nick Vannett and Troy Fumagalli and Kyle Rudolph and Cameron Brate. So this team is struggling against tight ends. Jamie, we just talked about Gronkowski and Hurst. Where's Jared Cook compared to them?
Cook and Hurst are very close. They're just outside my top 12, 13 and 14 respectively. I don't know how much Drew Brees is going to play in this game, so I'm concerned about that. But Cook's got touchdown potential. They're all very similar. They're touchdown or bust type of guys. None of them are going to catch the ball very much.
Are you guys both concerned about Drew Brees sitting at some point?
I think so, yeah. I think it's possible, but if he's sitting, that probably... Well, here's the thing. If he's sitting, that means the Saints have a lead. If the Saints have a lead, you would think that Brees had a hand in it, but last week he didn't have any touchdowns. He played well. He just didn't score because Alvin Kamara was getting all the nods inside the 10. I don't mind.
He did not play well last week.
I thought he did.
He had 2 interceptions. First time in 40-some-odd games, he had 2 interceptions.
I still think he threw. I mean, the yardage was good. I thought. Let's put it this way. I thought he threw it better than he did the week before when it was his first game back.
I'll go right in the middle. I thought he was good and bad. First of all, the interceptions, it seemed like Jared Cook ran a poor route. That's what Troy Aikman was saying. And then the second one was dropped. It was off someone's hands. It wasn't a great throw.
I think it was Sanders.
But I think so too. But he did have a ball that should have been a 3rd interception. That was a terrible throw. His wide receiver made a play on to make sure it wasn't intercepted. He threw a couple balls like up the seam that were really nice. One to Jared Cook, I think one to Emmanuel Sanders. I thought he kind of started to look like himself later in the game, but he has not been great. Obviously, he has not been Drew Brees in 2 games since coming back. So, Jamie thought
the second half of his first game was pretty good against the Chiefs.
Yeah, I thought he started to play better then. But he's had some bad throws in every game this year. Like you say he hasn't been the same Drew Brees in the last 2 games. I might say he hasn't been the same Drew Brees for much of the last 2 seasons.
Oh,
well. We've seen his arm kind of fall off a little.
Okay,
I'm being nice when I say a little.
He's like setting the records with completion percentage.
I don't have any concern about his play the last couple of years. It's just the last 2 weeks. He had a bad first half, and I don't think he was great last week against Minnesota.
Yeah, it's weird. The numbers are really interesting. 19 of 26 for 311 yards. That's really good. No touchdowns, 2 interceptions. That's really bad. But Alvin Kamara obviously shined. And there's always, you have to downgrade Brees a little bit because there's stinking Taysom Hill, right? I mean, it's so annoying. Start Kamara. But Brees or Rivers, by the way. Brees or Rivers?
Rivers.
Okay. Brees or Bridgewater?
Brees.
I'd go Brees.
All right. Start Kamara, Emmanuel Sanders, like a number 2-3 kind of wide receiver?
In PPR,
yeah.
I think he's worse in PPR. He's getting 5 targets each of the last 2 games. He gets 4 catches. He's
got the safe PPR floor. He can get you 11 plus. I think he's done that like 5 straight with Drew Brees.
Yeah, but what's better? Like, because he's had 76 or more yards in 4 straight with Brees and without Thomas. 4 straight games with 76 yards. I mean, that's a better, I think, non-PPR floor. Unless you just don't think he's going to score. Then I guess he's better in PPR. He doesn't have a ton of touchdowns, so.
No, I think he's more of a flex than a number 2 receiver in non-PPR.
Okay, I guess you're hunting for touchdowns there. Any other Saint wide receiver that you're thinking about this week?
No, they seem to like Callaway as their second guy, so I don't think you can trust him at this point. I do think Latavius Murray comes into play this week. He's got 10-plus points in his last 2 games in PPR, and I do think you're going to see Alvin Kamara probably not play late in this game as well.
Okay. And then for the Panthers, Bridgewater is outside the top 20. Are you going to start a Carolina running back?
Yes, Curtis Samuel. I think it's a great game for him.
Curtis Samuel better than Robbie Anderson this week?
Yeah, Anderson practiced in full on Thursday, so he should be fine dealing with the groin injury. But would not surprise me. I have DJ Moore ranked ahead of Curtis Samuel based on what the upside could be, but I would not be surprised if Samuel is their best receiver once again.
I would be surprised.
Is more in your must-start territory.
Yeah, he's a top 24 receiver.
Yeah, they both are. I mean, Samuel's going to get probably close to 5 carries, if not more, without Mike Davis and Christian McCaffrey in there. And then he'll get his touches in the passing game. He's been so consistent fantasy-wise for really the majority of the season, but certainly the second half. It's hard to overlook that. And I think he's within striking distance of 1,000 yards, if I'm not mistaken. He's going into free agency. I think he's going to have another great game.
And remember, there have been 17 wide receivers with 7 or more targets against the Saints. 16 of them have had 73 yards or a touchdown. That is really surprising and not good from a Saints standpoint. And you know that these Carolina receivers, they get peppered with targets typically. We'll see if that holds up, that continues here. So that really leads us to Robbie Anderson. Robbie Anderson or Emmanuel Sanders?
I'll take Sanders, just the fact that Robbie's a little bit banged up, but they're close.
If he pulls through with another full practice on Friday, I'm okay starting Robbie ahead of him because he does get targets.
Total yards per Samuel, not 1,000 receiving yards.
Okay. And then how about Curtis Samuel or Emmanuel Sanders? I'm assuming you're going Samuel there.
Yeah, easy.
I've got Sanders.
It was not easy to come up with a 2021 question for this game. I have Robbie Anderson or Curtis Samuel. That's the only thing I could really think about.
Well, Samuel may not be back.
Right. So that's why it was difficult. All right, then I'll say DJ Moore or Teddy Bridgewater next year. Who do you guys prefer?
Who do I think will still be on the Panthers? I think they'll both. I think there's a good chance both will be on the Panthers.
Here's a good one for you. Who's averaged more PPR points this season, Curtis Samuel or DJ Moore?
DJ Moore.
Yeah.
Sure?
Yeah.
If you're asking, then I'm not sure.
They are within 0.4 of each other. DJ Moore 14.03, Curtis Samuel 13.79.
Nailed it. Told you.
Curtis Samuel's had a great season.
We are going to take a break here. When we come back, Dallas and the Giants, Seattle, San Francisco. How many games do we have left? 3 or 4? Minnesota. We have 4 games left. Minnesota, Detroit, and Chicago, Green Bay. Got time for your emails at the end of the show as well, so stay tuned for that. fantasyfootball@cbsi.com, and we will be right back. All right, Dallas is at the Giants, and big game for these two teams, unless Washington wins, which they probably will. So this game is probably stupid. But anyway, Dallas at the Giants, and our stat of the game, we have 2 of them. No tight end has more than 38 yards against Dallas in 8 straight games. And look who they played. They played some good ones. Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Minnesota, Washington, Baltimore without Mark Andrews, Cincinnati, San Francisco, no Kittle, and Philadelphia. So Philadelphia twice, Ebron, Minnesota, Logan Thomas, none of them had more than 38 yards. 3 of them caught touchdowns in their last 8 games, so that's nice. But, Evan Ingram gets so many targets. In fact, I wonder where he ranks among tight ends and targets. I bet he's top 5. And he just does nothing with them. So anyway, starter sit.
I would try to sit him if you can. Last week was great. What he did against Baltimore was nice to see. But you said it. The Cowboys have been really good against tight ends, and they held him to 1 catch for 16 yards in the first meeting, and that was when Daniel Jones was healthy. So I would try to avoid Evan Ingram if you can, especially in non-PPR. He's got 1 touchdown on the season. So, maybe this is the game where he finds the second touchdown, and the Cowboys have given up some touchdowns to wide receivers, but to tight ends, excuse me. But I just don't want to trust Evan Ingram right now.
They gave up 2 touchdowns in their past 6. I mean, it's basically the same stat that Adam said. He's had 8 or fewer PPR points in 3 of his past 4, 6 or fewer non-PPR points in 4 straight games. I don't see a ton of upside. I don't see him erupting here.
He is 3rd in targets at tight end.
Take my thunder.
And if we had told you that before the season, you would have raced to have drafted him. We all would have. We would have all been very excited to draft Evan.
There are 4 tight ends with over 100 targets. Can you name them?
Kittle or Kelsey, Waller, Ingram, Higbee. No, I'm just kidding. It's not Higbee. I can wish. Who's got 100 targets?
I would have said Hawkinson. He's 98.
Oh, you're cheating.
Yeah, I was trying to find out where Ingram ranks, so I'm looking at the list.
Did Noah Fant crack 100?
87.
No, he's about to crack 90.
He had 20 the last 2 weeks.
He had 13 games. He missed 2 games, so he probably would have. It's Logan Thomas, and it's kind of interesting.
Oh yeah, of
A little
course.
off subject here, but just looking at the numbers, this is a very interesting side by side. Logan Thomas and Evan Ingram have the same amount of targets within one. Ingram actually has more yards, 4 more yards than Logan Thomas. Thomas has 8 more catches. But you think about how inefficient Evan Ingram has been this year. Logan Thomas has been equally as inefficient in terms of yards per target. And he does have 4 more touchdowns, which is huge. But the Giants have thrown 10 touchdowns this year. So that's killing Evan Ingram's numbers. And everybody's going to be really excited about Logan Thomas. But just overall numbers, 633 yards on 104 targets. That's not very good.
Yeah.
Didn't he throw a touchdown too?
He did.
Yeah.
Yeah. Both of these guys aren't running deep routes very often. That's a huge part of it, is that they're asked to run 5 yards, turn around, or make a cut. That's it.
Ingram goes downfield sometimes, I thought.
Well, listen, Logan Thomas does too. It's not like they do it all the time. They're told, don't go past 10 yards. Don't go past the sticks. But Ingram should be used more. Like the usage is maddening when it comes to Evan Ingram.
Back on subject here. I'm sorry about that. Stat of the game number 2. Andy Dalton has thrown 13 touchdown passes in his last 6 games, and Giants quarterbacks have thrown 10 this season. And when you look at this game, Giants opened as favorites, and now the Cowboys.
The line is weird.
Yeah, the line's moved like 6 points. And
how did the Giants open as favorites?
Well, all right, they've lost 3 straight. The Cowboys have won 3 straight. Who have the Cowboys beaten? Cincinnati, San Francisco, and Philadelphia, when Philadelphia was kicking their butt until their best defensive player got hurt. So, it's interesting. It's how much do you trust the Cowboys offense is my question here. They've scored 30 or more points in all 3 of these wins, these consecutive wins. And the Giants have looked like crap the last couple of weeks defensively, but they face Cleveland and Baltimore, who have great offensive lines, or Baltimore's just impossible to defend. This is
the Giants are missing so many key guys against the Browns.
Well, 1. Yeah.
Well, 2. They're slot corner too.
I don't know how key he is, but he's a rookie slot corner, Darnay Holmes. But yeah, no, it's they're starting to look bad. They're starting to look like they're wearing down a little bit because they've had some injuries and they've held up. But how much do you
I think they've scored 20 points in 5 straight games.
I'm not talking about the offense, not about the defense. The offense sucks. But how much do you trust the Cowboys in this game when the competition is going to get a little bit stiffer than what we've seen the last few weeks?
I mean, Dalton's a streamer for this week. I think you could look at him if you're, scrambling for Mahomes replacement. He's not bad based on what his track record has been. I think it's 21 or more points 20 or more points in 4 of his last 6. So he's played better lately. And then the receivers, they're all in play. It's just a matter of they're not all 3 going to have good games. So last week was Gallup's turn. I guess they all played well last week, but I don't think that's going to happen this week because I'm sure Bradbury is going to take one of them away. Most likely it's Cooper, but we'll see. And then, is Zeke back or does Zeke just beat up on a bad defense? So you're starting Ezekiel Elliott for sure.
You have him in the top 10. You both do.
Yeah, I mean, you have to start him based on what you saw last week.
Yeah.
So hopefully that's a carryover to this week and that he's healthy and that the line is playing better. And certainly they involved him in the passing game. That was huge. But he's not going to do the same thing. He has a better chance. He has a chance to score, but I don't think he's going to go for 100 yards against the Giants defense. And I don't think you're going to get all 3 of these receivers having great games. So it's just a matter of, who's the one that will let you down or 2 of them that let you down.
Giants have 2 sacks in their last 3 games. I think that's a real indicator that they're just not playing as well defensively as they were.
But it's also, like you said, they played much better offensive lines. This group was not the same.
They play better offense. They've also played 2 extremely mobile quarterbacks in Kyler Murray and Lamar Jackson. So that's not good for sacks. So yeah, I do think it's going to be a pretty competitive game. So when you look at the wide receivers, you're starting Zeke. He's top 10 for you guys. Dalton's middle of the pack. So you're not starting Dalton. You're not starting over Kyler. Are you starting over Russell Wilson?
Yes.
Yes and no. Okay.
I think they're the same. They're both going to be right around 18 to 20 points.
Rank the wide receivers in this game with Sterling Shepard in the mix.
In PPR, I'll go Cooper, Lamb, Shepard, Gallup.
Cooper.
They're all top 28.
Cooper, Gallup, Lamb, Shepard. And they're all top 35.
So you are starting Cooper.
Starting Cooper. I like what I'm seeing from Michael Gallup, though. He's got rhythm with Dalton. He's led them in targets, catches, yards, and touchdowns over the past couple of weeks. He's playing really well, and he's never going to see double coverage or anything like that because of all the other receivers that they have. I don't mind starting Michael Gallup this week in PPR for sure. Maybe even non-PPR too.
41 or fewer yards in 4 of his last 6 games. You know, I'm so nervous about making too much of a game against the Eagles.
100%.
One of his touchdowns was that long, like wide receiver screen, right? Where he just burst down the sideline.
That was a long catch, yes.
But that was a running catch, right? I mean, so that was that. Yeah.
That he got a little lucky on that, but he also made an awesome toe tap catch. He's getting looks in the red zone. He's becoming more and more involved. The coaches talked him up this week about how they want to get him more involved in the offense than he already is. That's hard to do when he's leading the team in targets. So I get the risk involved with him, but he's playing well right now, and I think the Cowboys are going to throw a decent amount in this game. I think Dalton trusts him.
Would you guys?
Yeah, I don't know about them throwing a decent amount in this game, just from the standpoint of I don't know the Giants' offense makes them throw.
Would you guys start Ty Johnson over Wayne Gallman?
Yeah. I do like Gallman this week, but I think Ty Johnson's got a much better setup.
Dallas DST's top 12 and 2021 question. Who is the number 1 Dallas wide receiver in fantasy drafts?
Well, Gallup is probably gone. So
unless they can figure out a way to get Cooper off the squad. But I think Cooper played well enough this year where that's not going to be as big of a priority as it might have been.
Okay.
It is a bad contract.
Who's number 1?
Cooper.
I bet Cooper's the first one drafted. I bet Lamb will be drafted soon after him. It wouldn't surprise me if Lamb had a better year than Cooper.
Let's go to our next game. It's Seattle at San Francisco. Stat of the game. Only 2 running backs have more than 69 rushing yards against San Francisco. Both of them were Rams. Darrell Henderson in week 6, Cam Akers in week 12. So this is a very good run defense. These are 2 very good run defenses here. Which running back do you like better? Chris Carson or Jeff Wilson? And how confident are you in these guys? Dave Richard.
I like Wilson better, simply because I think he's going to be the bell cow again for San Francisco, and they're doing a good job running the football. And Carson's been splitting a little bit with Hyde, a little bit with Rashad Penny. He's had these moments where he looks like, dominant stud running back, but he's just not delivering the types of numbers that fantasy managers are looking for. He disappointed last week. I think Wilson ends up being the better back this week.
Okay. Jamie, agree? You good there?
Yeah. I mean, Wilson, I was very high on him for the last 2 weeks. And so, love what I saw from him last week. I wish he was doing a little bit more in the passing game, but, that's not necessarily his forte. So if they're chasing points, you have to wonder how the game will unfold for him. But I think you're going to see Seattle start to pull some guys, which is also why I like Wilson better than Carson, because they do have other guys to lean on if they're scoreboard watching and they find out what the score is in Green Bay.
I bet they don't have that luxury. I don't think Seattle builds a lead in this one. I think San Francisco keeps it close.
Would you say that work in the passing game was Matt's forte?
Yeah.
Right, it was. Yeah, Chris Carson's been very consistent last 4 games, 12 to 16 carries and 63 to 76 rushing yards in each game and 2 to 3 catches in each game. So, that's kind of been what he's been around the 69-yard mark, which is, like I said, only 2 running backs have eclipsed that against San Francisco this year. Russell Wilson. All right, what's wrong with Russell Wilson? I guess we should mention he's faced some pretty good defenses during these last 7 games in which he's not playing all that well. Rams twice, Giants, Washington, and he crushed the Jets. 16 points against Philadelphia, I think, was pretty disappointing, but Philadelphia wasn't so bad. So this, look, it's hard to evaluate San Francisco's defense. Sometimes they're really good, but when they face good offenses, they're terrible. And they were terrible last time they faced Seattle. He scored 36 points in week 8. All right. So you guys but you don't have Russell Wilson ranked that way. Heath does. Heath has him 6th. Dave, you have him 15th. Jamie has him 14th.
I didn't like what I saw from Russell Wilson last week. I felt like he was a little I don't know if I want to say off target or sporadic might be the best word. Like sometimes he made the right throw and good throws, and sometimes he was, he threw an uncatchable ball or he was just a little bit off for his receiver. I think the team's decision to run the football more is hurting Russell Wilson. I think Tyler Lockett not playing at 100%, or at least it seems that way, is taking away some of the efficiency that Russell Wilson could have with his downfield throws. And he's just not playing his best football right now. He looks kind of lost right now. And maybe he turns it on and he gets it going, and he can do that at any moment. But I'm hesitant to start Russell Wilson unless it's with the expectation of, all right, what he gave you last week where he ran for a touchdown is 21 fantasy points. That's what I would hope to have from him, is right around 20 to 22. But those games that he had earlier this year with 30 plus points, forget it. I don't see that happening.
Okay.
It's all about volume. It's completely tied to
That
what the
too,
volume is.
yeah.
And that's the part of it. He played well last week given the opponent. I have no problem with the way he played. And the thing about it is, you just look at it. The Giants game is the one that stands out because he threw 43 times in that game. And I do think that they had didn't Metcalf fall down at like the one? I'm pretty sure he did. Huh?
Yeah, I don't remember.
I'm pretty sure there was an almost touchdown for him that they ended up converting with a rushing score. But aside from that, it's been basically, it's 28 attempts against Arizona, 31 attempts against Philadelphia. That's when their run game started to get going. 27 pass attempts against the Jets, but he threw 4 touchdowns in that game. 27 attempts against Washington, 32 attempts against the Rams. That's the problem. It's the only problem, because in the beginning of the season, it was 40 plus attempts almost on a weekly basis, or 35 plus attempts on a weekly basis. So it's completely tied to how much he's throwing, and doesn't have to do that this week. And so that's the problem for me, is that he'll still get you probably in the neighborhood of 20 to 25 rushing yards, but if he doesn't get that second touchdown, which is what saved him last week, you're going to be in trouble.
37.1 pass attempts in his first 9 games, 31.3 pass attempts in his past 6 games.
It's volume.
It's a buy, but he's also on the 30 pass attempts that he has now. He's not, crushing people. He's not challenging downfield.
But again, you're talking about the last 2 weeks. The last 2 weeks, he's played 2 of the better defenses in the NFL, in Washington and the Rams. And Washington was on the road, where they know they typically struggle on the East Coast. So I don't think it has anything to do with his play. I think it's all tied to volume.
Oh, well, I mean, 6.62 yards per attempt in his last 7 games. That's got to be a little bit of his play. He's also getting nothing from Tyler Lockett. So let's go to the wide receivers here. Metcalf's been struggling a bit against very tough matchups, basically. Metcalf and Lockett, what are we doing here?
You're starting Metcalf, you're sitting Lockett.
Man, I wish Heath were here. He's got Lockett in his top 20. He just won't.
We've had these conversations on HQ, and Heath is. It's funny when you spin stats to fit your narrative, and so Dave and Heath.
Everyone does, by the way. Everyone does. Everyone does.
Oh, I'm not saying Heath. It's we all do it. But Heath and Dave were arguing Phillip Rivers versus Russell Wilson on HQ yesterday, and Heath used the last 6 games for Russell Wilson's average versus Phillip Rivers' average. And the difference is that in 2 of those 6 games, Wilson has 24 plus points, whereas Rivers has been kind of living in that 21 point range. So the big games have boosted up Russell Wilson's average.
He had one big game against the Jets.
Well, he also had a 24-point game against, I don't know how far he went back, but he had a 26-point game against Buffalo. He had a 24-point game against Arizona. The Arizona game is definitely factored into that.
No, I don't know. 23 against Arizona. That was the first of this.
I'm looking at decimal scoring. I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah. And, that is weird, because if you just look at Russell Wilson and you take his game against the Jets away, and then if you took the Phillip Rivers against the Steelers game away, it would be a much different story. But yeah, so it's kind of.
And then your A's are statting it all over the place. I think the bottom line is that both of these guys are going to be low end. They both have a chance to finish in the top 12 at quarterback.
We're talking about Lockett, though. I wanted to let's talk about Lockett, because we already talked.
You can't trust Lockett. I mean, he's been so miserable. Like it's a little different to get away from. It's a little harder to get away from Russell Wilson, because your mind tells you, I'm not starting Mitchell Trubisky over Russell Wilson or Phillip Rivers over Russell Wilson. I totally get that. That's something like, oh my God, did I just sit up? I know he's not an MVP candidate now, but a potential MVP quarterback, or one of the best fantasy quarterbacks ever that we've had in the last decade, versus an old man or a guy who could get benched at any moment. Lockett, there's so many other options. There's no reason to trust Tyler Lockett. The body of work since the second Arizona game has been miserable.
Yeah.
He's not running downfield routes. That's as simple as it is for me. And he's not getting decent target volume, but his average depth is not good.
But even that's gone down because Wilson's attempts have gone down.
Okay, we're moving on because we have HQ in 40 minutes and I have to shower and shave. Start any San Francisco wide receivers in this game?
No, but Richie James is interesting.
DFS Richie James.
Yeah.
George Kittle's top 3 in both formats. Seattle DST is top 4 for Dave and Jamie. 2021 question, Tyler Lockett or Brandon Ayuk?
Ayuk.
Minnesota's at Detroit. Stat of the
Quarterback pending for San Francisco.
When Kirk Cousins gets 3 touchdown passes, he scores 26 or more fantasy points. It's happened 6 times in the last 10 games. Can he get 3 touchdowns? Well, yes. 4 of the last 5 quarterbacks to face the Lions have thrown 3 or more touchdown passes. So let's get Kirk Cousins in that club. If you watch CBS Sports HQ today, and you can watch it on demand, I'm sure I'm going to be one of these 600,000 people who have a Minnesota stack, and Kirk Cousins is my quarterback, obviously. All right, so he's a start. He's top 8. We like him quite a bit. Stat of the game number 2. Oh, all right. Stat of the game number 2. A running back has scored 14 or more non-PPR fantasy points in 4 straight games against Minnesota. And that will be good news. Very good news for DeAndre Swift. So, Jamie, who's the best running back in this game?
It's DeAndre Swift, but I think the one thing that makes me a little bit nervous is the backup quarterback situation for the Lions, if in fact it plays out that way. And I don't know if it's going to be Chase Daniel or David Blau. I guess at this point you got to assume it's going to be David Blau, because why would they play Chase Daniel? But Minnesota got completely embarrassed on national TV last week, and Mike Zimmer was not hiding his emotions, saying it's the worst defensive performance that he's ever had. I wonder if the emphasis is just going to be play 8 guys in the box, and you have to throw with your backup quarterback to beat us, and we are not going to let you run. It's different when you're playing New Orleans because the threat of the passing game is clearly much different than the threat of the passing game right now for the Lions. So I do wonder if DeAndre Swift is running into just a brick wall, albeit a fractured brick wall, but a brick wall nonetheless of just a sea of bodies. And they're going to just single coverage the guys on the outside and bring their safeties up and just say, if you're going to beat us with your backup quarterback, beat us with your backup quarterback. So you're starting DeAndre Swift. You don't see a guy go for 55 PPR points the week before and then bench a talented running back the next week. But I don't think that Swift is going to have a huge game. He's going to have a startable, borderline number 1 fantasy game.
And if Madison plays, why isn't Madison going to have a huge game? I know you have a bad taste in your mouth because of Atlanta. Everybody does.
It's the only thing.
But yeah, he had 2 other games with double-digit carries this year, and he was awesome in both of them. And the Lions give up the most fantasy points to running backs.
Look, you're starting Madison. He's a great DFS play. It's just a matter of who you're going to say you're starting him over. We could debate probably 10 guys about that. But there's a 3-game sample size without Dalvin Cook going back to the last 2 seasons. And only one of those games was the backup good. And it was Mike Boone.
Week 17
last year. It doesn't bother me. It just doesn't, because I think Madison is a lot better than Mike Boone. And I think that Detroit is a lot worse than Atlanta. I think so.
I don't think we can say that he's a lot better than Mike Boone because he hasn't been able to really prove that. But I think
he will this week.
I think even if Mike Boone were the guy, there would be an opportunity for him because this Lions defense is atrocious. They are so terrible.
The nice thing about it is obviously, because of the sudden and tragic news for Dalvin Cook, the DFS pricing for Madison is fantastic. So he's going to be in everybody's line. The Vikings are basically, you cannot have a DFS lineup without a Vikings player in it, without the expectation of one of them doing well, because Thielen and Jefferson are obviously in play. So Irv Smith is in play.
We had the same 4.
No,
Madison is in play.
I don't know who you have.
All right, let's go. I have Cousins, Madison, Jefferson, and who do you have?
Irv Smith.
Nope. Couldn't get Irv Smith in. Tyler Conklin. Okay. He gets like 30, 40 yards. He's kind of involved. And I needed to get Derrick Henry in my lineup, so I had to go from Irv Smith to Tyler Conklin. Mm-hmm. All right, start both Minnesota wide receivers. Irv Smith is top 10. He's a good play this week. Do you guys like Irv Smith better than TJ Hawkinson? Hawkinson has been limping to the finish line.
I do without Stafford. Even if Stafford's not healthy, I'll still take my chances with Irv Smith. That's non-PPR. PPR, I would start Hawkinson over Smith if Stafford plays.
Okay. Marvin Jones, start or sit?
Sit with a backup, start potentially with Stafford.
Okay. Minnesota's
it's pretty clear. He needs 12 targets. If you look at his numbers, every game where he's under 12 targets, he's been bad. And that's with like 8 targets, 7 targets. He needs 12.
So you wouldn't start him if I told you he was going to get 11?
I would start.
Okay.
All right, here we go. 21 question. Adam Thielen or DeAndre Swift?
Swift.
Thielen will be one of those guys that everybody passes on, and then he ends up being okay.
That's what he was this year.
Yeah. It'll be the same thing next year.
Green Bay at Chicago. All right, Aaron Jones, Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams, you're starting them. Robert Tonyan, starter sit, Dave.
Tunions. You're starting him. Bears have given up terrible numbers to tight ends all year long, except last week against Tyler Eifert. They managed to contain him. So I think that Tonyan can be relied upon as a touchdown needy tight end.
Start David Montgomery, start Allen Robinson, and we'll come back.
I might lower expectations a tad for those two. You're going to start them, but don't expect them to do what they've been doing.
It's not the easy schedule like we've seen.
Well, it should be for Montgomery, though. I mean, this is not a good run defense. They've gotten better.
No,
They've played better.
better.
I just like
they held
Montgomery's
Henry
the best
under
Bears player in this game.
they've held
Yeah.
Henry was playing on ice skates. Tennessee looked so uncomfortable in that game last week. They had no idea how to play in those conditions. So Green Bay's had a terrible run defense for 2 seasons in a row. I'm not ready to say that it's good now because of the last 4 games. But if they do well against Montgomery, the hottest running back in football, basically, then you do have to take it pretty seriously going into the playoffs, I think.
I think they're peaking. I think they're playing really good defense right now.
They certainly are in the back end, but Allen Robinson it's hard to get away from him. So let's talk about just real quick on the tight ends. Any interest in Cole Kmet or Graham?
No, he showed up on the injury report too. But Jimmy Graham's taking too many red zone targets.
And then finally, Trubisky. Are you starting him over Russell Wilson?
No.
I'm not. I think, again, you look at the first meeting between these two teams. It started this little run of Trubisky, whether you buy in or not. He had 24 fantasy points against them, but he had 3 turnovers in that game. He had 2 interceptions and a fumble. And he got the 3 touchdowns. He ran a little bit. Obviously, volume was up for him. But this Packers defense, you said it, the back end has been playing much better. Their secondary is fantastic. And so will he get to the second touchdown? How much will garbage time factor in? How much will the Packers start to pull guys if they have a lead in this game? How much will that help Trubisky? So I don't think he's a complete, oh my God, I got to bench this guy. He's awful. But I do think that this is going to be a mistake-prone Trubisky game where you see his typical flaws. And the Packers pass rush and the Packers secondary will come into play here. And this defense, I think, has been a huge reason why this team has played the way that it has down the stretch.
Trubisky or Alex Smith?
Trubisky.
Trubisky or Andy Dalton?
Dalton.
I'd go Dalton, but that's close.
Okay. And let me read. 2021 question. What do I got for this game here? Jordan Love or Mitchell Trubisky in Dynasty?
Oh, that's a great question. I would still go Trubisky because I don't think Love is playing for the next 2 or 3 years.
I'm not sure if Trubisky's playing for the next 2 or 3 years.
Yeah, it was a tough question. I was really proud of myself for that one. Okay, gonna read a couple emails here. No
like
mailbag.
All the things to talk about in 2021. It's those 2.
From Michael. Dear AZ, JEDR, HC, and BS. I'm AZ. You got everybody's initials except for mine, right? But that's okay. I'm AA. Rodgers or Watson this week?
Rodgers, but it's close.
Non-PPR, Noah Fanku or Irv Smith?
Noah and PPR.
Interesting. I'll still go Fant, but
okay. And then same non-PPR, pick 2. Julio Jones, not expecting him. Kareem Hunt, no. Malcolm Brown, Gio, Cooper, T.Y. Hilton, John Brown.
Hilton's the easy one.
I'd go Cooper with him.
Give me the names again.
Yeah, Hunt, Malcolm Brown, Gio, Cooper, John Brown.
And what's the format?
Non-PPR.
Non-PPR.
I'll go Malcolm Brown.
Okay, this is from James, looking to replace Travis Kelce and Dalvin Cook. Gronkowski or Irv Smith?
Irv.
Yeah.
And it's PPR. Pick 3. Montgomery, Jonathan Taylor, Swift, and Gaskin. Pick 3 of those 4.
I would sit Swift.
I would sit Swift as well.
Okay, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Oh my gosh, we're done with Starter Sit. We do have fantasy football today and 5 on Sunday. and we'll throw that in this feed as well. And we've got 3 episodes per week beginning next week, so we're not going anywhere. But it's been a great season. It's been a lot of fun. Happy New Year to everybody. 2021 is going to be better than 2020. We will talk to you on Sunday morning and then again on Monday with another episode of Fantasy Football Today. Good luck. Go win your league.
All right. See you in half hour.
All right. Later.
Later, guys.
Want more of the Fantasy Football Today podcast and nonstop year-round fantasy advice? It's simple. Hit the subscribe button and hang with us all throughout the year.